No idea if that's gonna stick, but that's what we're gonna go with for now. So, you're probably wondering about this. I haven't even taken it out of the top loader yet because I am super apprehensive about how good this card is. Charming Mutant Sweet Cocktail. This unit is wrote upon. Choose one of your opponent's rear guards without any cradles. Put a cradle on it. When this unit is put on Guardian Circle or takes a grade 2 or greater Vanguard from rear, so blast 1, your opponent chooses one of their stood rear guards. They choose. And they retire it. If they did not retire it, you draw a card, and all of your front row units get 5k power to the end of the turn. Vanguard skill. Rearguard attack, draw a skill, and retire. And it interacts during your opponent's turn. I don't really need to explain how good of a card this is. It is for Megacolony, and that's understandable why some people would be like, oh, well, it's not that good because it's a Megacolony. But it actually synergizes really well with a lot of the different decks that we have right now. And honestly, it's a lot better than Blister. Take that with a grain of salt. Because it doesn't make you discard a card from your hand, which means that during more difficult turns like restanding Vanguards or lots of XL markers, like this card is going to have a lot more value because number one, your opponent's probably just going to retire one if they have a bunch of XL circles instead of like giving you 5k to front row. But like that reduces their numbers. The presence of retire is always good. And it's only Soul Blast 1 because there's a lot of builds right now that actually have a lot of reliance on Soul Cost for Megacolony. And that might not sound super feasible, but it definitely is. One of the builds that we have right now is, and it's the one I play the most, the Flagberg build. This is a build where you play Gentle Moth and Butterfly WD and Inlet Pulse typically. I'm currently working on a build where that's not required, but they just got an announcement that Inlet Pulse is going to be reprinted. So now everyone's going to get their Inlet Pulse copies, which means the work I've been doing has been for nothing but blah, 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 blah. That's not the point. This card is definitely an option for those that want to do the Flagberg build. Personally, I prefer adding more multi-attack pieces than Elite Mutant Giraffe. The reason for that is actually because you can sit on Elite Mutant Giraffe. In the premium format, you actually have a lot of times where you don't want to give your opponent first stride, and Megacolony doesn't really do anything if you get to grade 3 first. It's a problem that they've had for a long time. And Flagberg doesn't really do much with that either. In fact, more of its weaknesses are pronounced when you go to grade 3 first, because if your opponent damage checks the trigger, then, well, there goes your turn. Honestly, I think that in the Flagberg build, you can still run this because of how much soul you run, and you can just call over this card. It doesn't say that it has to be placed on Guardian Circle from hand, so theoretically you could just leave this on your rear guard and use it during your opponent's turn by intercepting. Now, is your opponent not just going to attack this card first? And if they were smart, they would, but like, I'm not going to judge you if you don't.
Am I right, ladies?
I mean, this card also lets you draw a card, too. It's like, why would you not attack this card first? Or, like, retire with a skill, or lock it, or bounce it, or... Yeah, no. You get the idea. On to the next build, let's look at Ghidorah. I think that's one of the builds that's going to capitalize the most on this card, because the Gridora build is a super cost heavy deck. It's one of the reasons why I don't play Blister in that deck, or at least not a lot of copies of Blister, because it is so cost heavy. The reason why the Gridora deck, or the Darkface deck as it's better known, is more cost heavy is because you are constantly using Gridora's stride skill. The main pull of the deck is actually the addition of walking off the column. And a lot of decks just can't deal with that. Like, it's just a universally good mechanic. Like, it's not really going to, like, expire anytime soon. It's not going to be made easier. It's not going to be made more difficult. Like, it is what it is, and your opponent has to deal with it. The only problem with that is that you're also going to be using Guilty Empress. And that's before you use any other skills that turn. But with Guilty Empress, and then probably Malignantes, and then Elite Mutant Giraffe, that's 4 counterblast. It's 4 counterblast, and then you're probably also soul blasting for the cost. And then if you're running this, that's soul blast too. But that's a problem with the Dark-based build in general. It's more of a toolkit deck, and it's more for dealing with a variety of things rather than, you know, some other things. Personally, I think the build that capitalizes the most on this card is Shieldfisher Dragon. Shieldfisher Dragon, in case you don't know, is a Megacolony build where you simply write up the Shieldfisher Dragon and you just kind of sit on it. The Vanguard literally does nothing. It does 0 things. The whole point with it is that you stride on it and you get extra numbers on it. The important thing is that it's an 18k base during both turns. Now, I don't know what on earth they were thinking. They probably weren't thinking anything, because Shieldfisher Dragon is a Sorkea card, so they didn't even think this very well with it. But if your opponent chooses not to retire, then you have a 23k base Vanguard before it triggers. That's insane! 23! Not only are most multi-attack decks, unless you're playing Glory Maelstrom and you somehow turbo a Maelstrom into Soul, not going to like be able to deal with that, but 23k power you can guard with the rest of the turn. It's crazy. It's amazingly good, and it makes the Shieldfisher Dragon build a lot more competitively viable. It makes the Shieldfisher Dragon way more of an argument than the Flagberg build. I still think that this only improves the defensive value of the deck. It does not help improve the offensive quality, which is one of the reasons why I will still be playing the Flagberg build, because I still think the Flagberg build has like more offensive tools that pressure your opponent's hand. And we've already seen a game state where Megacolony has more advantage resources, but isn't really able to execute on them. So, you know, it's just better, in my opinion, to run Flagberg. But I think if you are playing the Shieldfisher build, it's also a more cost-effective deck. Then you would want to run, well, first of all, you would definitely want to run this. There's no reason why you wouldn't want to run this. Like, it would be a mandatory staple, which I don't like to say too often, but it's a staple in the Shieldfisher build. It is currently a $250 card right now. Of course, I can always check. Oh, there are no copies on TCG Player. I don't know what to tell you. Get your copies where you can, I guess. But like, that's really funny. There's no copies left on TCG Player. For more niche builds, if you're looking at the Machining build or you're looking at a Megacolony deck, I would say this doesn't really add to your win con. I think in Machining it's a little bit more viable, because you look at Soul a lot more of the time, and Butterfly Out for there's actually a staple of that build. I'll probably get into that later though. Overall, I think this card is just 10 out of 10. Like, it's a really good card. I think it does have weaknesses. The biggest weakness being is you cannot sit on this on the Vanguard. It's still the 9,000 power base that all the Protected Clan grade 2s are. I think that it was good that they didn't make it so that its secondary skill could also be used from Vanguard, because that would make this card able to be sat on, and then you would just like sit on this card until your opponent were to grade 3. And that gives this card a weakness. Like, the weakness of Brilliant Blister is that you have to discard a card, and all of its skills require Soul Blast, which means you'll just essentially chug Soul in that situation. And that's all can be used towards your different things, like your Guilty Empress, your Intrude Scissors if you're running Intrude Scissors, Red Wasp if you're playing Red Wasp. If you're playing the Megacolony build, that would be Jerk. And then there's a bunch of other things. I think Machining also Soul Blast a good bit, but my Machining knowledge is weaker than most. But yeah. This card's a 10 out of 10. Like, for the game as it is right now, I think this card is really good, but not broken. It's definitely not. Especially in Premium, where decks can get up to like 200,000 power. Not calling you one out in particular with that, but or 200 million. Sorry, but yeah, that's all I really had to say. Obviously, like, I could have talked to like more about the build in depth. I could use this card, or I could make lists, or I could do that. But I'll probably come out with some lists about this soon. I plan about releasing more content. I plan about talking more about different Megacolony pieces that people still don't understand for some reason, even though they're out forever. And they're like, duh, I hate Megacolony. Like, they're so terrible. But it's just like, there's ways to play around it, and there are matchups that Megacolony hates playing against, just like anyone else. It's just like one of those things, if you play into a control build, you don't want to get retired, right? So why would you treat it any different? Yeah. Yeah, that's everything. I'll talk to you later. Have a good day, night.